Hey guys, today we are gonna have one clip and we're gonna do 3 grades on the same clip. So for the first grade, we're gonna do kind of like a standard grade just to make it look a little bit more contrasty and make the colors pop a little bit more, maybe adjust the colors a little bit. Then for the second one, we're gonna go for a more teal and orange kind of look. You know, the general usual cinematic movie kind of look. And then for the last one, we go for a little bit more of a muted, desaturated look. So one clip and 3 grades just to show you kind of like the versatility you can do with color grading and how you can get your look forward, and hopefully you will learn something along the way as well. For this one, we have a clip from the DJI Mini 3 Pro. I believe it's shot in D-Cinelike, but I am converting it to D-Lux in Davinci Resolve, as I don't have a lot for converting Cinelike. So let's jump into Davinci and get started with this grading. All right, guys, we are inside of Davinci, and the only thing I've done so far is just to pull in the clip, and this is what it looks like in full screen. Let's jump into the color grading tab, and the first thing I want to do is my usual color space transform. So we are going to take the color space transform here and we're going to convert it from D-Gamut and D-Lux to Davinci Wide Gamut and Davinci Intermediate, and we're going to do the same thing for the other one, but just from Davinci Wide Gamut and Davinci Intermediate to Rec 709 and Gamma 2.4. I know that this is probably shot in D-Cinelike, but so far, every time I've worked with D-Cinelike, this has worked out quite fine as well. So now everything we do inside here will be in the Davinci Wide Gamut color space. And you can see the difference here is from this pretty washed out, desaturated look to this, which is a bit too much, but we'll fix that in a second. First off, I'm just gonna label my notes here. So this is from D-Lux to Davinci Wide Gamut, and this is from Davinci Wide Gamut to Rec 709. Rec, and then we can see it. Okay, so this one we're gonna call D-Lux DWG. Yes, okay, now we can see the name. So for the first thing, we're just gonna kind of adjust the overall exposure and everything. So I'm just gonna go into our curves here, and I'm gonna pull in a contrast curve here in our custom curves, lowering the shadows, increasing the highlights here, which makes it look even worse, I know. Give me a second. All right, and then we're gonna adjust the exposure here in the second node. So let's just label this one first. Contrast, can that be there? This one will be our exposure. And we are gonna raise up a little bit here, and then I'm just gonna try and play around with the highlights and see if that's enough. Then we get the information back in the sky here, and I think the blacks are pretty good as well. So I think this is a pretty good starting point. Let's see what we've done with these 2 nodes. It's not that much, but we've made the colors pop a little bit more and given it some more contrast overall. So now I want to go into our grading, and I don't want to do that much. I actually think that just going from this to this is pretty good, and actually seeing that again, we might want to decrease the gain just a little bit here. Maybe to 95, 96, and just increase the gamma ever so slightly and the lift a little bit as well. And just gonna look at not that much of a difference here, but we've just opened it up a little bit more. Now onto the color grading. So I'm just gonna try and see if these colors in here, I just kind of want to make them a little bit more orange. So I'm just gonna make 2 points around here to cover the orange hues here, and then see what happens if we go into this. So I actually just want it to be ever so slightly more orange, not much. I think that is kind of the sweet spot. It's almost nothing. I think that's pretty good. And then I just want to do sort of the same thing here, but just desaturate it a little bit again. Actually go back in. I think we want it to be more of this yellow hue. And then for the luminance, just going to see if that's needed here. You can actually pull that back just a little bit to get a bit more information back. I think that looks even better. And then I'm going to look at the water here and see if I want to do anything with that. So let's just check the hue. And not much is happening, so let's just remove these nodes again and try and drag on the water here to see what we're selecting. And we're actually selecting points over in the red area, so that might be why nothing's happening. So what is the blue? That might be the sky actually that we have up here. And let's just check again. It is. So I don't want to do anything with the colors here. Just going to remove that point, but I do want to desaturate it a little bit because I think it has a bit too much saturation. Just going to desaturate that a little bit. All right. So I think for just a standard correction, I think that's pretty all right. I don't really want to do much more with this grade. I think it looks good right off the bat. This is just a regular transformation, mostly just a color correction. And then we did our one curves here. That's basically it. So that was grade 1. Now I want to move into grade 2. So let's just grab a still of this one so we know where we were before we did anything else. And now I want to keep our base here, but I just want to add another node, and then we're going to go in and play around with the teal and orange look. So I'm going to apply some more blues into the shadows on the left, kind of like this teal color. So maybe I think 4 blues and 2 greens, and then might remove 1 red. That made everything look very teal. And then for the gamma, I'm going to try and do sort of the opposite. So remove at least 3 blue and 1, 2 green, and then add some red back in. And I already think that looks a lot better. We kind of got rid of this green cast that is in the water and made it more blue and teal. And also the highlights here are warmed up just a little bit, but I want to warm them up just a little bit more. So I'm going to add some more red and maybe add some green. No, see the blues. No, we're going to leave those alone and leave them at 1. And just maybe warm it up just a little bit more. See if you want to do that with the gamma as well. That was too much, definitely too much. I think that comes from the gain, so let's push it back a little bit. I think that looks pretty good overall. And primaries for the colors here. And then we might want to do one more and say this is our log wheels. Just want to see if we want to play around adding a bit more blue or teal into the shadows down here. I think that just gave it a little bit more of a push and just brighten it up a little bit. So I might just reduce the shadows at the same time a little bit. And looking at the midtones, I just want to drag this around and see what it does. It does a little bit in the middle. Don't like that much how it looks. For the highlights, I think this does a little bit of a difference, but it doesn't really make it look that much nicer. I think I want to drag it up a little bit towards the orange here, just for a little bit of more color, but that's basically it. Let's see what we've done. We just basically warmed up the image and then cooled down all the shadows. So I think this is a much more pleasing look, definitely, than the first one. So the first one, we just basically took the colors that we had and then applied a little bit of grading with the green ones. And now we have this more teal and orange look, if you will. Now for the last one, I want to make it a little bit more saturated. I think we can just continue from where we are now. So let's just grab another still, have that in here, maybe name these. So we name this one Run and this one grade 2 for the sake of it. And then we're going to move in, and now we're going to play around with desaturating some of all of this. So first off, I want to go back into my notes. I want to go into the saturation versus saturation and just kind of play around with lowering most saturated parts, which I believe is somewhat in here. Just gonna add another node in here, and then going to try and drag this one down. That immediately, you can see if I drag that down to the bottom, we're desaturating everything in here, which is the most saturated parts. So I'm just going to drag that up ever so slightly again and just see where a sweet spot is for this one. I think it looks better with the muted colors there. Then I'm going to make one in here and just drag down part as well. And this is a bit more tricky because we have a lot of saturation in here, as you can see in this curve. So I'm just going to play around and see what it does. And actually not that much is happening. Just see what happens if we do like this. And that's because we have a lot of colors in here. Those are the ones that are showing up in here. So let's just try and just add a little bit. Maybe actually just desaturate everything a little bit. So that's a little bit more muted. Let's go into the luminance versus saturation. Let's take the brightest parts and just lower those again. And the darkest parts as well. And just kind of see what we can do. So let's select this point down here and get our spline out. Kind of just make these curves like so. I think that's pretty good. So this is our sat curves. And this one, I want to go in and I want to play around with the saturation in general. So I just want to mute it down to around 25, I think. That was way too much. So let's try 35, maybe even 40. Don't want to take away too much, but I like this is a bit better. And then I'm going into the colors again and go to our saturation tab here and just see what happens if I just reduce everything. That's definitely too much. So let's try and make a few notes around the colors that we have. So we definitely have some colors in the blue and the magentas, and we have some in the orange hues. So the orange hues will definitely be our sun. Let's just actually put a little bit more saturation back into that. And then we are gonna try and decrease our blues here even more, just for this very desaturated, muted look. And I actually think this looks pretty good as well. We haven't done that much with this one. We've just muted the colors here a little bit more. So just see what we've done. We've gone from this to this, which is a lot more muted. I actually think we want to go into our curves here and then the luminance curve and just kind of play around with the reds here and then just make them a little bit less bright. Then go into saturation here and mute that again, even though we just brightened up before. I think that is a pretty good look. So just showing you that this is what we came from. So let's just grab a still from this as well. And now we can kind of compare all the grades that we just did. So let's jump into our gallery and just get our white on here and just, we're going to call this one grade 3. Just going to add this one so that we can actually see what it is that we're doing. And from here you can see that this was our first grade and this is our last one with the muted colors. So quite a different look, much more muted, much less variance in the colors. And let's just look at grade 2. That's a lot more saturated and warm with this kind of like teal and orange look. You can see how the water is a lot more saturated as well. And then maybe just reset this and then apply grade 2 and then look at grade 1 and see what that does. So if we zoom in a little bit, these are the differences between grade 1 and grade 2. I think on the left here, yes, we have grade 2. So this was what we started with. This was our first grade. And then we warmed it up, made everything a little bit more warm and teal and orange. And this was the first one we had, which just kind of have like a little bit more of a green cast, I think, after I've seen the warmed up image. But I think both of these look pretty good. Just trying to kind of place these one over each other so you can see that this is the before and after. This was quite a simple shot. It doesn't have that much color and variance. So I think we'll try another one with some green tones that we can do a little bit more work with. But for now, that's it for this video and showing you a few different ways to color grade and work around these colors. So I'm just gonna let that be that for this video. It was quite a simple one and we didn't have that much color to work with. It was a very simple shot. But I still wanted to show you a few different techniques and how you can work around different looks and how you can build on top of what you've already done if you kind of take it step by step. So I hope you learned something from this video. And other than that, I'll catch you in the next one. Have a great day and take care.